All righty. Welcome to another episode of What the Huck Wednesday. Today, we're going to talk about something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And this, by the way, is May. We're in the month of May, and it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're going to dive into the conversations that a lot of people tend to shy away from. It's becoming more amenable to talk about it versus years or even decades ago. And I'm excited to have a special guest join us that is a professional in the area of mental wellness. Her name is Ferris Clare, and she is the owner of Harvest Counseling and Wellness LLC, the website, the Harvest Counseling and Wellness.com. Ferris, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Huck. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I am fantastic and excited to talk to you about mental wellness. Now, before, you're a small business owner. How long have you been in business?
4 years.
Right.
4 years this year. Yep, we were established in 2021, so like right in the middle of the pandemic.
COVID. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, mental wellness was definitely needed during the pandemic. And, as a result of the pandemic, needed even more now, given everything else that's going on. There's a lot of reasons why people are in need of some, I don't know if we call it therapy or conversations to help ease some anxiety. And pretty much everybody deals with mental wellness in different capacities. So you could have good days. We all have good days. We all have bad days. And they tend to hopefully even out. Hopefully you have more good than bad. But, some of us go through some things that really start weighing us down, and we need to express ourselves to somebody like you who is a professional. So let me get into your business, your background. Where you from?
I'm born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. I spent some time growing up I lived in North Branford for some time. I lived in Guilford for some time. I also lived in East Haven, Connecticut for some time, but
New Haven County. You made your way around.
Yes, but New Haven is my stomping grounds. I went to high school in New Haven, and so it's always going to be home.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Cooperative Arts and Humanities Magnet High School, also known as Co-op.
Co-op, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And after high school?
After high school, I went on to do a Bachelor of Arts program at the University of Massachusetts. And then later did a graduate degree and got a master's in science or a master of science in counseling at Southern Connecticut State University.
Okay, so you're degreed up.
I am. Yes, I am.
Now, what got you involved in the mental wellness arena? Where did that pivot take place? How early in your growing up years did you realize that that's the avenue you wanted to pursue?
So it was never really a dream. Like, it's not like a dream come true, although I do feel like I've been prepared for it over time. So, and when I mentioned like New Haven County and some of the towns and cities that I've frequented or I've lived in, I feel like I've interacted with a many different groups, different cultures, people from different backgrounds. I do feel like that was preparation. I didn't know it at the time. And if I could like pinpoint a time in my life, I would say I was about 28 or 29 years old. I experienced like one of the probably like the most beautiful and the most traumatic events all within 6 days of each other. I gave birth to my daughter, and 6 days later, I lost my grandmother. All in the same week. So experiencing life and death all in the same week. So a lot of mixed emotions. Obviously over the moon, completely like madly in love with my daughter, but also completely devastated by the loss of my grandmother, who wasn't just family; she was more like a mother to me. Mm-hmm. So, I was angry. I went through all of the stages of grief. Anger being the first. I was angry. I was mad at her for leaving. I felt like she left me to some extent, even though I know it wasn't her fault.
Yeah.
She stayed if she could have. But I was angry. I was mad at myself because I chose a path that made motherhood harder than it had to be. Mm-hmm. And so, I had to kind of like process those emotions. I never, ever, ever considered therapy for myself at the time, although in hindsight, I should have. But at the time, it was not that it was unheard of, but nobody went to therapy at the time. So that level of pain kind of really broke me down. And instead of therapy, that wasn't an outlet for me. I did what I've always done, which was talk to people.
Hmm.
I found those conversations to be therapeutic, whether I was sharing my own perspectives or listening to other people. And I, have always kind of been like a student of life, always trying to kind of make sense of the world. And I did that through conversations. And again, not knowing at the time that it was all preparation to be in the field and to go on to be a therapist. But so I eventually enrolled in my counseling program. I got all the way through the internship. So now I'm a mother, I'm going to school, I'm working full time. And I got all the way through the program and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to help kids and I don't want to help them navigate the school system. I decided I want to help women, and I wanted to help women like me. I wanted to help women who were balancing all of those roles, going to work, going to school, being a parent, and help like help them learn and know what to do. Like if you've always been told that you're strong, I've always been told that I was strong, and I've always been strong, but not really knowing what to do with that strength and not really having the tools to heal. Certainly not the language. And I decided I wanted to help people like me, and I wanted to help them balance those roles and still be able to carve out the life that it is of their choosing.
Now you
So,
said something interesting
mhm,
that we all go through. That week where you had the high and then the low, a roller coaster. And life is really for everybody, no matter who you are, your background. Life is really a roller coaster. You're gonna have ups, you're gonna have downs, and we've been told way back when counseling was an omen. You seeking a therapist, you're going to a shrink, and something's wrong with you.
what's wrong with you?
Um, that suck it up. You're strong. Just suck it up and move forward.
Mhm.
And that's easier said than done. But over the years, and thank God, it's becoming more. Um, what's the word? More acceptable to seek people like you, professionals like you, versus you can have your friends and your circle of family members too to talk things out, but somebody that really knows mental wellness and how to navigate it from a professional standpoint.
Absolutely, because when we suck it up, we suppress,
Yeah.
and we're taught to suppress feelings and
Yeah.
not process feelings, right? And there's a strength in being able to process those feelings. Like there's it's therapeutic to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So and then also I'll just add to that when we suppress those feelings, if we don't process those feelings, they end up showing up in other places and other spaces in our life.
Yeah.
So you haven't really sucked it up. You may appear that you've done it.
Mhm.
You certainly can say you have,
you
but
you pushed it into another tunnel that,
exactly.
that could affect other parts of your life.
And it will.
Yeah. And you start behaving in ways that are unusual for you as a person, not you, but a person, when they start to suppress things. And it's not healthy. Obviously, it's not healthy, mentally, but it's also not healthy physically because, you know, that mental stress can lead to physical ailments down the road as well.
Absolutely. And it does. And it does.
So, how did you start your business? Because starting a business, you know, having the idea for a business and then actually moving forward with the process of creating it, two
Hmm.
different things. Because a lot of people have great ideas and want to start a business. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. But put pen to paper and actually make it become a reality. That's a whole different thing.
It is. I feel like, I feel like that was the only option. I hadn't all of the work and the time and all of the, certainly the really time more than money, but all
Mm,
the time invested on money as well. There was no alternative. It would have been to just like work for, work for like another agency. And but it was modeled for me. You have to do so many hours of supervision. So I got to see the business model up close and personal. I learned very early on, like in my 20s, how to kind of come into spaces and look forward, like what is that climb up the ladder going to look like? And so I did that going into a second career. I was very intentional about how do I maximize the use of my time and how do I help as many people as possible. And so that was always the motivation. And then, you don't always see the full staircase. Like you have to kind of, right, the clarity doesn't come until you take the first step.
Right.
And so I wouldn't say I had it all figured out.
And nobody does. I mean, and that's the myth that, you got to have it all figured out before you start in
Right.
anything that you do in life. And that's not the case. You got to take step number one first. And then, a lot of things are just learn on the job training, you
Absolutely.
figure it out as you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the only way. I love the analogy, the staircase for one, but I also love the analogy of like, if you were to take a long drive and it's dark and it's kind of foggy, right? And you might not be able to see the whole entire trajectory, but you
Right.
can see like a few feet ahead of you.
Yep.
No matter how long that drive is, you can take the whole ride that way in the dark with it being foggy.
Yep.
So that I would have compare that to any goals you have.
Yeah. Moving slow and intentional.
Exactly.
So you started the business in Connecticut and you're now in Maryland.
Yes. So I have two practices, two locations. One is in New Haven, Connecticut, and yes, now in Maryland as well.
My old stomping grounds.
Yeah. I know. You have to well, yes. Well, so look, now all of our stomping grounds are commonality.
Oh yeah. Yep. So what types of services does the Harvest Counseling and Wellness offer?
Good question. So we do one-on-one, like individual counseling, which would be like a traditional format. We make it, you can come in person or you can do it virtually. We also do couples counseling. So anytime people are, I want to just say this too. A lot of times people just kind of think that means marriages. It's not always marriages. Sometimes it can be like leading to marriage, couples
Relationship.
yes, relationship. I would categorize that in a different way, just because of some of the legal piece of what that, which is also part of one of the factors that we would probably address in session. But so you can use couples counseling to either leading up to marriage, to certainly like sustain marriage, and then also to separate amicably. We also do like co-parenting, which is hard to find. So we do co-parenting sessions as well. We do relationship stuff. So relationships, which is a strong point for me. We do some group work as well. So there'll be at least 6 people in session, up to maybe like 10 or 12. We try to keep it intimate. And I also do workshops, like professional development workshops for different organizations and agencies as well. So I design those workshops and make them unique to whatever issue or challenge the company is faced with. And then, maybe 4 hours, 8 hours, and then consult, and then we present those workshops as well.
I'm going to have you back. I did a workshop a couple of years ago, and I'm going to do it again in the fall, preparing for the golden years. And I had a financial expert. We had a funeral home. We had a person from the Alzheimer's Association. We had a registered nurse for health issues, but mental issues in terms of preparing for those golden years as well is a factor.
Absolutely. For I would say the patient and the family as well.
Family. Yep. Preparing for it. And then as we age, because, there's this thing called the sandwich generation now where you got kids, but, your parents become your kids and, you care them for up and down.
Right.
And, sometimes that could be stressful for those people in the middle of that sandwich.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow.
And then just aging, in and of itself can be stressing.
Yeah,
stressful for, for some people, you're
absolutely.
going into a different phase in life, and, things don't always, well, things never stay the same. So we're, I say we're maturing. We're not getting older. We're maturing. But as that maturing process goes, and you get into that, you know, past halftime, and I equate a lot of things to sports, but the first, second quarter, young adult years, and then you go into halftime, and then you're in that third, going into the fourth quarter arena of your life. That can weigh on people as well.
Absolutely. It's so important. It's a part of the lifespan, right? It's a part, right? Part of life is death. And I think there's a lot of like that at that stage, there's a lot of reflection that happens. You're either really, really pleased with the way that, the decisions that you have made and your life overall
Mhm.
or not.
Yeah.
And you certainly have to kind of like process that and find ways to kind of cope with that as well. For sure. That's awesome.
So, what are some of the signals or identifiers that people can look for, either within, or if you see some things in other people that are close to you that may raise a red flag and say, "Hey, we might have to have a discussion," or you may want to have a talk with someone.
I like the distinction between the two. I definitely, definitely internal. For as much as it's great if somebody else can kind of say, "Hey, I think you really should consider, reaching out to seek some help and get some support." It really has to be an internal decision. You have to want to take those steps. And I think some of the signs, there are so many. Some of them can be very, very subtle. It could just be like you can't sleep at night. You can't fall
Mm,
asleep. You can't
mm,
stay if you fall asleep. It can be not eating. It can be overeating. It can be just really like really irritable. Um, if you're just your mood, overall mood, uh
mhm.
your functioning, overall functioning as well is hard to regulate. You're resting, but that's not really helping.
Right.
I would also say I think a lot of what happens with mental health is centered around relationships. That's just my personal opinion in theory. But if you're reaching out, or if you're talking to friends, you're talking to family, and they're typically a good resource for you and a good outlet for you, but you find that they're not really listening anymore to what you have to say, or you get the impression that you're burdening them in some way. I think that is a good indication as well to kind of reach out.
Because there's a difference between talking to family and going to, do we call it therapy?
I think therapy is okay. I think therapy, counseling.
Counseling?
Yeah, I liked what you said earlier about like therapy versus wellness, though. I think wellness is kind of a little more all encompassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems less threatening. It doesn't have that taboo because, we're still living in a society, although it's not as taboo as it used to be, it's still, kind of out there as a taboo. Hey, some people still shy away, knowing that, they're going through some things internally. And there's a lot of things in society now. I mean, it could be relationships, but, given everything that's going on in the world, in this country,
Hmm.
in politics,
Hmm.
and everything, job, finances, there are a lot of stress factors in the atmosphere these days that can weigh down on people. And
For sure. Yes. Into that, I say it comes down to like it is internal. It comes down to like what's your belief about those things?
mhm,
Like, what's your standpoint? Because everything that we deal with, every stressor, right, it stems from a belief that you have about something, right?
mhm,
So if you feel like everything is hard, it's like the red car syndrome. If I'm taking a long drive, I like to drive. If I'm taking a long drive, and I spent the day driving, and you say, Ferris, how many cars or how many red cars did you see today? I'm gonna say, I don't know. I have no idea.
right,
But if
right,
if you say, Ferris, you're taking a drive, I want you to count how many red cars you see. I'll know exactly how many red cars because I'm looking for them. So
right.
so and our brain operates the same way. So I would say, for as much as yes, there are social structures that exist, I do not dispute that. That's a fact.
Hmm.
It really comes down to some things are just out of our control, but we can control how we respond to those things, how we interpret those things, how we process and how we remember those things. So it really kind of stems internally from your belief. That's my thought.
And then the Black and brown community, you know, we have our own stresses, long-term stresses
We do.
from whence we came, and dealing with, you know, where we are today and certain things that happen within our culture to us and even by us sometimes, you know, lead to needing conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would, you know, I would ask just to kind of like identify what some of those challenges are.
Mm,
Certainly poverty and
mhm.
or just finances. Again, though, I think relationships are big, really big.
Keep going back to that word.
Because it's so important. It's so important. But to your point, the sandwich example that
Mhm,
you, right? You have households, far too many,
mhm,
that you have, right? You're either caring for elderly parents,
mhm,
yourself, and or small children,
mhm,
or you're just kind of caring for small children, like that family structure. That's important, right? That's like
mhm.
that's the first institution. And if that's stressful, right? Everything you learn, everything you believe in that space, right? You just end up passing down to the next generation. So I
Okay,
do.
I see where you're going with the relationships,
Okay.
up and down and sideways. Okay,
Yeah. Yes.
I got you. I got you.
Certainly other factors, but really
Mhm.
the big one.
So you got some big projects coming up, or that you're working on too. I understand with organizations and not just one on one, but you know, in group setting. You mentioned before that you're working with companies and organizations to facilitate wellness within that capacity.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that started during the pandemic as I was starting the company.
Okay.
Um, this was right after the untimely death of George Floyd,
Hmm.
and police departments were looking to do some more training, and so that was like the onset of that piece of the business to develop workshops and certainly have more conversation around how do we bridge the gap between communities and police departments. And that, right, was like a springboard into
Hmm.
that desire and love for creating.
And society has become a lot more divisive since then. Just maintaining relationships with people, can be stressful, just in general, day to
Abs-
day life.
abs-
In the office, outside the office, just walking down the street.
See, even that, like even societal structures, right?
Right,
It comes down to what kind of relationship is there, right? What
right.
kind of relationship does the community have with the police, and what kind of relationship do the police have with the community, and right, bridging those gaps. Um, and just to give another example of some of the workshops, a lot of times like supervisors too, like
Mm,
or management, so to speak, people don't know how to work with people. They don't know how to speak to
yeah,
people. They don't know how
yeah.
to save spaces for people. So again, it almost always stems back to relationship.
Funny. Um, have that going on in an organization I'm with now.
Hmm.
The tension happening within the group. So yeah,
And it's the same. It's like one person can change, right? Like
yeah.
for every time you kind of mix groups around, there's always going to be change. If you
Hmm.
take one person out, add one person in, right? There's
Yeah.
like um, I've done like equine assistant psychotherapy as well, and it's what they call the pecking order amongst
Mm,
the horses. There's
hmm.
always one that's going to assert themselves. It's usually the oldest horse, but sometimes there's a little bit of mixture depending on personality. But the same is true in other spaces as well.
And family units. You have siblings. I've had this conversation with a number of people that, as we age, there's typically one sibling, if there's multiple, that really takes the lead in certain areas when it comes to family matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes they're resented for that. Or sometimes they're overextended, or
Mm,
or they overextend themselves. They're overly utilized rather.
mhm,
Comes with, stress and
yeah,
pressure.
yeah.
That's a good example. See,
Uh,
you get it.
okay, okay. I'm learning some things today. So we're in mental health awareness month,
Yeah.
mental wellness awareness month. What are some things that people should do in terms of creating more awareness of, mental wellness?
Yeah, I think we have to be more willing to have these kind of conversations,
Mhm,
really have some open dialogue. I think that anybody who's done any kind of therapy, whether for a short period of time or a long period of time, if people certainly were a little more maybe open about their experience and
mhm.
those benefits. um
Some people don't like to share though. They don't. They you know. Some people have a problem with just letting it out to somebody else.
for good reason, and that's fair. I definitely think increasing like access to
Mhm,
therapy. But first, to your point, we have to work on destigmatizing. Although I agree, I think we've come a very, very long way. Especially younger generations, they seem to be a lot more open to seeking treatment and getting some support. um but I I also feel like we have to, like, a lot of, and when we talk about urban communities, a lot of what we experience has been normalized, and so
mhm.
we've become like desensitized to so much.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have to have those conversations, and then move toward being a little more open. But I also feel like more representation in the field too would help
Mhm,
would help.
mhm.
And and giving it like a full, like, I would say at least 90 days before you make an assessment and decide whether or not the support is helpful to you. Like, nothing grows overnight, nothing
Oh, yeah.
changes overnight. So
That's like in analogy. I'm in radio, right? So people want to buy advertising, but only want to do it for a week and look for results. It's like, no, you got some things you need a long term commitment. If you trying to lose some weight, you go to the gym. You're not going to go to the gym and be like, "Where's my new body?" You
exactly,
got to put a long term effort, long term commitment into it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm. Taking a break versus like a lot of people say, "Well, I just need a break. I just need to reel back a little bit." Versus, you know, saying, "I need to have a conversation with somebody like you."
Yeah, yeah. They can look and feel the same. I would say a break should really be a normal part of your daily routine, right?
Mhm,
Especially depending on like what kind of job you have, depending on what kind of career you have, what your day-to-day routine looks like. Like a break should really be already like built into your schedule. So if you take
mhm.
it, and that, well, first of all, if you're not taking breaks, you should be taking breaks. Just because you have like time, like a pocket of time in the day, doesn't mean you have to, or you should always fill that time with something to do.
Or even on a weekly and a monthly basis, because some people they're grinding so hard, or they're trying to achieve something so fast that their head is down into the ground and there's nothing else. But you know what they say: all work and no play, or no relaxation. Doesn't make you a dull person, but it could start to make you an unstable person.
Absolutely. And breaks can be fun too. It doesn't have to be laborious. It doesn't have to be, a chore.
Mhm.
It should definitely be, on a regular basis. And I don't mean like get your hair done, get your nails done, like that kind of break. I mean,
Pampering.
because that
Yeah,
that
that's
right,
pampering.
that's right. That's a luxury. And
Yeah.
and but when we talk about self-care, that's usually what people are referring
Mhm.
to. And I think we have to like, those are some things that we have to like spreading awareness. Like
Mhm.
that's not the kind of break we're talking about. We're talking about like peace,
Mhm.
silence, going in like, that's external outside of yourself. And we're always looking for outside resolutions. It has to be internal. So
Mhm.
so peace. Um
Protect your peace. I do quotes every morning for radio, and
oh,
I do on Saturdays. I have this theme on Saturdays. I call it self-care Saturdays.
mhm.
And like you said, not just the pampering part, but really take the weekend, which most people have off if they have a traditional Monday through Friday 9 to 5, but take some time to really just woosah and create some space for your peace, meditate, relax, you know, erase your mind of all the exterior BS that's happening in the world,
You
and
have to.
just
You have to. You'll come back to your day. You'll come back to your work better when you're
yeah.
rested. Like rest is definitely a weapon. You should be resting on a regular basis. For as much as the body is a beautiful machine, it too needs that rest to recuperate, to just kind of decompress, and it helps manage, right? It helps you manage any stress that you're experiencing. And
Physically, but also I think the brain. I was referring more to, self care within your brain, within your mindset to really, calm yourself from the week and find a peaceful space. My happy place, Connecticut, New Haven's by the water.
mhm.
Being by the water is my happy place.
What's
So
what's your what's your go-to?
where West Haven in the beach, I
Okay.
just like being around the water, walking, just clear my mind. That's therapeutic mentally for me, just to, you know, get rid of the stresses that I deal with day to day. Because
Absolutely.
everybody has stresses. You may not realize it, but everybody is dealing with something every day, good, bad, or indifferent.
Absolutely. Some
And if you don't take a break mentally just to decompress and woosah and let those, the fog release, then it builds up.
absolutely. I say your mind is like a dog off a leash. It's going to roam. You have to be in control of that. Like you have to spend some time being accountable for what those thoughts are. Like
Mm,
and again how you recall events that have happened, how you frame the experiences or the people that you're around, right?
mm,
You can't always control other people or other circumstances, but you have control over how you approach, how you respond, and how you interpret your experiences. So
mm,
it's going to be important to like, yes, sometimes just kind of pull away from your environment. That's going to help you kind of see things from a
mm,
different perspective, and certainly try to if you're into like mindfulness or meditation, anything that
mhm.
kind of gives you peace, helps you kind of recenter. It's good. Any breath work is going to be helpful.
Breath work.
Breath work, yes, yeah, yeah. So just there are many approaches to that. You wanted to do a deep breath inhale. When
Mm,
you think about it, let me just to add a little bit of context. When you think about it, you walk around all day long, right? Nobody pays attention to the breath, but it's the one thing that's keeping you alive all day long. So so it's really being intentional about kind of feeling the
mm,
air, coming to fill up. It's slow. You hold,
mm,
and then you exhale. So that's the first step. There are different approaches to that. Some
mhm,
people do like 4 4 4, inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. Your heart rate is going to drop. So anybody who has like an Apple Watch,
mhm.
there's some. I'm not
Good.
technologically savvy at all. I don't pretend to
It-
be.
they
Um,
they monitor your heart rate.
it does,
Yeah.
which is really really cool. So I'm just saying that to say scientifically proven.
Mm,
So breath work is going to be important. I know that it's like it's a little awkward. It feels weird at first, but the more you do it,
yeah.
the more beneficial it becomes.
Relaxes you too.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
So, but now I'll just say too, and not just that, but it helps you go back to the space right?
Right.
Right, you make different decisions when you're at peace, when you're relaxed,
Hmm.
right? So very
Okay.
important. You want to practice? You want to do a
Come on, let's do it.
you want to model to a quick
Yeah.
breath? Okay, do some breath work. Okay, so I'm gonna when you're ready. So this is grounding is important too.
Hmm.
If you can put both of your feet on the ground. Usually, like people like to do it sometimes outside. There's also take your socks off and like be in touch with the earth. But that I don't want to
Oh,
go,
okay.
but that is relevant. You want both feet on the ground. You want to kind of sit back and relax in the chair.
Hmm.
Relax your shoulders, relax your eyebrows. When you're ready, you can close your eyes. We'll just do like 3.
Hmm.
Obviously, the longer you do it, the more beneficial it is, but we'll do 3 just for argument's sake. And you can close your eyes, get really, really comfortable. Inhale for 4 seconds. Make sure, make sure your tongue is resting on the floor of your mouth. Super relaxed. Hold for 4 seconds and then exhale for 4 seconds. And then keep your mind focused on the breath and try not to be focused on any distractions around you. See, you're so relaxed. I bet that was more than 3 breaths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That felt good.
Yeah. See?
I'm gonna have to do that on the beach with my feet in the sand.
Yeah.
Really get in
Perfect.
touch with earth.
Exactly.
Getting
Exactly.
warm outside. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna add a new routine to my regimen.
Peaceful.
Yeah. Now, yoga provides some of that within it, and not. Well, that's never mind.
Well, well,
Because
no, no, no.
yoga
Well,
is not therapy, but I know they have some of similar techniques in terms of breathing and stuff.
absolutely. But that's where I think that's where the wellness piece comes in, right? Because
Mhm.
there's right. There are many, right? Different theories will say there's 5 dimensions of a person, 6 dimensions of a person, 7 dimensions of a person, meaning you have your physical body, right? What you eat, so like health,
Mhm.
diet, nutrition, exercise, sleep wake pattern. You have you have your cognition, right? The mind, the brain. You have an emotional dimension of yourself. How do you respond to,
Mm.
or how do you, right? How do you cope with intense emotions? You have a social piece of you, right? Your relationships, friendships, family. And then arguably there's financial, right? So when we talk about the whole person and we talk about wellness,
Yeah.
exercise is definitely going to be like a stress reliever, and definitely going to have mental health benefits along with the physical benefits as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
And you mentioned, what we eat, but also what we feed our mind too, the mindset capacity. So, you are what you take in physically and mentally.
have you ever seen? So there's like there's a meme. Two quick points. There's a meme. There's everything is a meme. So
Everything's a meme these days. I've seen it.
there are two depictions I've seen. One is like the ear is like a womb, and so they'll like the picture of an ear, and then you have the picture of like a baby, like how it
Mm.
symbolizes like a baby, and meaning like everything, right? There's a like a portal, right? There's a
Oh,
tunnel.
right, right, right.
Um, that was my first thought, and then also like I just think about all of the like foods. There are theories that like the shape and texture of foods and the correlation to the benefits of the body. Have you seen those?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta send me one of those.
Okay, I will. I definitely will.
Okay.
It might be a meme, but
Everything's a meme these days.
it's then you don't have to, opposed to, I can send you a peer reviewed empirical study if you want to, but if you prefer the meme, you get the point. I'm saying the meme.
Okay. I think we're gonna have to do a workshop when you get back. Not just with my workshop, but we gotta put our heads together and put it on the forefront, just mental wellness, you know. Um, physical wellness and then mental wellness. Just, making people aware of, certain things like breathing techniques, some things that, we don't know, but you as a professional, you do, to create awareness and to create awareness of things that you need to look out for internally and externally.
I would love to do that, and to take like the mystery out of it, like
Mhm.
dispel some of those, demystify some of those rumors. Like it's really not. It's like a non-judgmental. It's a safe space.
Yeah, we're still trying to overcome that because I remember growing up, somebody was a little off or they had some mental wellness issues.
Mhm.
They were like crazy. You know, they got to go off to the facility. And that's where that stigma and it's deeply rooted, especially in the brown and black community. Um, you know,
And don't get me wrong, there are certain diagnoses that are a little more severe than
yeah,
others.
hmm,
However, um, it doesn't always mean that, like, like something is wrong, or
right.
you're crazy. Like the resource, the space is also very much used for like identifying what strengths you have, right? We look at like patterns. What patterns do we see?
Hmm.
And um,
And
I,
aren't there levels to this thing? Because you said you're more severe than others, but a lot of things probably start in small capacity, but because they're not addressed, it could elevate into something that can be deemed severe or more threatening.
that can happen. That can happen. Sure. Some diagnoses you'll see very, very, very early on in life.
Hmm.
Some don't develop until later on in life, and some can just be by way of life happening. Um, but also, it doesn't mean like um, some of the more severe disorders doesn't mean that you can't still live a f- have a full life, and still have
A function in life.
and have a qualitative life,
Right.
right? Doesn't mean that. Um, so much to say there, but there are, definitely disorders that can. I think, it depends on how you look at it, because there are also theories about. I won't go into that. I'm sorry. Scratch that. I won't go into that.
We'll say that for another
Okay.
conversation,
Okay.
a follow up, because
Okay.
we're gonna have you back and do some follow up conversations about mental wealth because I mean the more we talk about it, the more or the less of a taboo I think it becomes. And you have a lot of celebrities over the last years and over the last decade that have come and said, "Hey, ish happened." And because it did, it took me into a space that I wasn't comfortable in being in, and I needed to seek counseling.
I just want to say, you know what, too? Sometimes people are not, you can't hear the people that love and care about you the most.
Mhm.
Everything sounds like an ulterior motive, everything, right? Like,
Mm.
it's hard to hear it sometimes. And sometimes they're the hardest people to kind of take feedback or constructive criticism from. And a lot of times, people will say, well, you did this, and this, and this, so why would I take any advice from you? And so I think that, I just wanted to say, like, I feel like that is, one of the most important pieces of the service. Like, nobody's judging you.
Mhm.
Nobody, um, certainly not going to repeat anything that you say. I think that's important.
No fluff, no judgment zone.
That too, but
You
also, but
know,
we're gonna hold you
There's-
accountable too. Like, right? You're gonna be accountable for some of your decisions. I have a theory that we're at least, at the very least, 30% responsible for our experiences and how our interactions with other people. So we
mhm.
have we have to look at that as well.
Accountability and having an accountability partner, which is what you would be.
Absolutely, absolutely. It.
Somebody to hold your feet to the fire.
Well, in the most gentle way, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We, whether it's in the gym or in other areas, when you have somebody that's, I call it accountability partner. In my other profession of network marketing, that's what we do.
Mhm.
Somebody to hold you accountable for your actions or lack thereof. And, a lot of times we know what we need to do, we just don't do it. And it's easy to give up on yourself than if you have somebody standing next to you.
I'm going to say it's easy to point out what somebody else should be doing, right? We never look at it, right?
Oh yeah.
I feel like people are very, very, and I say this in the most humble and in the very best way, but we are very selfish people. Right? Like self-preservation is always in operation, and we always see things from the perspective of us, how it affects us, how we feel, what we think. And I'm just kind of saying that to say it's easy to just point the finger and usually very hard to point the thumb. But someone who is listening from a genuine place, right, who only wants to see you accomplish what you say you want to accomplish, is going to point out some of that disconnect where
Right.
family and friends are not always going to be they're not going to be able to listen to it the degree or be in tune to the degree to be able to want to do that because their emotions are involved.
They're too close to us,
Exactly.
or we're too close to them sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I enjoyed this. Like I said, we're gonna have to do this again.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
And real talk, no fluff, no judgment. And if you feel you're watching this and you feel like you're going through some things, and we all do from time to time, and some of those weights are heavier than others. And like you had a traumatic week as you started the conversation off with a gain and a loss within a couple of days. That tends to weigh us down. So whether it's your profession, your relationships, a person close to you, somebody that you're caring for, because another aspect of mental wellness is caregiving. Once you get into that phase in life,
Absolutely. I wanted to say too, everybody, like you use the like training, like athletes as an example, like the greatest athletes, all of them, they all have somebody that holds them accountable. They all have a coach. A lot of them have mental health coaches as well. They don't talk about that part, but right, the greatest actors, everybody has somebody that is outside of the frame, right, that has your best interest at heart. So I hope that helps people reach out. So if you're struggling, if you're not sure, we can set up a 15-minute consultation. To kind of flesh that out and figure out if it's something that you feel like you could benefit from. Certainly could help point people in the right direction. I don't know anywhere else that you can talk to someone who's committed to listening to everything you say, who's not judging you, who's not even trying to fix everything for you right away, not giving you any unsolicited advice. I don't know where you can get someone's full undivided attention for almost an hour in any conversation you have with a family member, with a friend, without them interrupting you, without them telling you what happened to them, right?
right?
Because that's not always
Yeah.
there. So
What's the phone number? You got a business number?
I do. The telephone number is area code 203-428.
Uh-oh.
Cut that. Wait, hold on. I gotta do it. Look, I gotta go like this.
Well, I know the website is
Okay.
theharvestcounselingandwellness.com.
I got it. I got the phone number. You ready?
Yep.
Telephone number is area code 203-428-4587.
There it is. All right. Say it one more time.
203-428-4587.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed the conversation. Again, we're going to have to do it periodically on a somewhat regular basis, just to keep the topic out there, not just during May, which is Mental Wellness Awareness Month, but 12 months out of the year, we gotta make it less of a taboo to be able to talk about some things and being able to seek professionals like you to help us navigate through some of the storms.
Absolutely. Thank you
One,
so much for having me. Thank you for
one
keeping the conversation open.
one of my mentors once told me in network marketing, you're either going through a storm, coming out of a storm, or you just, you know, one of those three always applies. And just when you think you got clear skies, you know, don't be surprised when another storm shows up, because that's what life is, you know.
Next time can we start with that next time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a thought for that approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part 2 coming soon. Ferris Clare, finally we did this.
Yay! Thank you.
And we're going to do it again. Appreciate you. Another episode of What the Huck Wednesdays in the books. What the fuck?